it's Kevin McCarthy.
Well, good morning, Mika. Good morning, Joe. Thanks for having me on. Look, first, I think it's important to take a step back. You all have articulated well the stakes, but it's important for your viewers to understand just how unprecedented this situation is. And the fact that we're now going into the third day of proceedings in the House without the House being organized, the first time in a century. It is dangerous. I agree with my colleague, Representative Valadao, and many others. The fact that the House hasn't been organized creates real risks for our country from a national security perspective, of course, from a governing perspective. And I think House Democrats at this point, as you said, couldn't be more unified and united behind the strong leadership of Leader Jeffries and, of course, focused on delivering real results for the American people. Our hope is that the Republicans can get their act together and find a way to ultimately reconcile their differences so that we can get back to work for the American people. But it's clear to me this Republican Party within the House is disinterested and incapable of governing. And that is unfortunate and certainly a dispiriting sign for every American who's been watching the proceedings the last couple of days.
And certainly a problem, Congressman. Good morning. For some of the debates that are coming down the pike here, this will be small potatoes, what we're seeing today, compared to raising the debt ceiling or funding the government, things like that. You can't imagine this coalition getting enough votes to pass anything. So what are your concerns, not as a Democrat, but as an American lawmaker, about where we go from here?
Sure. I think you articulated it really well. Perhaps the most troubling development over the course of the last few days is that this is but a preview of what is to come. The turmoil that the American people have seen within the House Republican Conference is a harbinger of the chaos and confusion and crisis that, unfortunately, I believe is likely to grip this Congress in the months ahead when we have real consequential challenges that face the country that we need to address. As you mentioned, the debt ceiling, of course, will be coming up later this year. There are important legislative vehicles that Joe and others are well familiar with, the Farm Bill reauthorization, the FAA reauthorization, important issues affecting the airline industry, many other public policy challenges. House Democrats would like to work with our colleagues to find ways to build common ground and deliver. But unfortunately, the extreme MAGA wing of the Republican Party has taken over the House Republican Conference, and it's apparent to me that it is unlikely we're going to be able to find those ways to develop common ground in light of the dysfunction that has taken hold already.
So I just want to go back to something you said earlier, Congressman, because a number of Republicans have said in the past 24 hours that this is democracy. It's messy. Don't catastrophize. You know, we're gonna get through this, and we're going to be better for it. What are the risks and dangers of this not getting done and it perhaps prolonging a few more days, even maybe longer?
Yeah, I simply could not disagree more. And you have, the words that I've used, chaos, caucus, so on and so forth. Those aren't my words. Those are words that you will hear from rank and file Republicans. Just yesterday, I believe there were a group of Republican members who have worked in a national security space who talked about the national security risks that exist as a result of the House not organizing. The reality that no member of Congress has been sworn into the institution. None of us have security clearances. The Gang of Eight, as you all well know, an important entity within the House, is right now the Gang of Four, because House leadership, of course, has not been fully constituted because of the Republicans' inability to ultimately organize the House. So there are real risks. You heard my colleague, Representative Valadao, describe some of those just in terms of our ability to actually deliver here by virtue of the Republicans' inability to organize. The other thing I would just note, and you've touched on this a bit during the program this morning, but Americans should be concerned about the demands that Mr. McCarthy apparently is giving into. I mean, he has capitulated on virtually every demand that the extreme wing of his caucus has made. That should concern every American. And the question is, what midnight deals was Mr. McCarthy striking last night with, the various folks who have been opposing him, and the ways in which I believe that will ultimately make this institution ungovernable and incapable of delivering real results to the American people in the way in which House Democrats did over the course of the last 2 years with a very similar margin here in the House.
Congressman Joe Neguse of Colorado, thank you very much for your insights this morning. We appreciate it. Thank you.
It's really